Good morning. Welcome to Sunday's Early Morning Intuitive Guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum, here with some words of wisdom for you to think about today and see how it might influence your deeper thoughts and your behaviors. So, as we had gotten something started yesterday, I want to finish that up today. Out of Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison. Good morning, Abigail. You're the first one here today. Welcome. Glad you're here. We'll give it a minute for everybody to catch on and show up. Thank you for all the pretty little icons. Good morning, Barb. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Everybody's starting to roll in. This is good. Good morning. So let's start with some breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Letting your shoulders drop. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Let's do a little tapping too. Wherever feels good to you. I like this spot. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Actually, I think I'm also going to do the reset point. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Just settling into right here, right now. Feeling yourself opening up with every breath to receiving this message, deciding how it fits for you, what, if anything, is useful for you, and what you'd like to take forth out of it into your day today and beyond. Good morning, Cindy. So, how did the stuff from yesterday settle in? As you were thinking about we were doing the, I'll flip my page open here. We were doing the holding others accountable. Good morning, Carolyn. Glad you're here. And a different way of holding other people accountable. That wasn't pointing fingers, but querying where they were coming from. Good morning, CJ. Glad you are here. Welcome. So today we're going to do taking quantum leaps. That in the posing of these non-defensive, curious questions, both as the giver of those questions and the receiver of those questions, we can make some quantum leaps in our personal growth. So what in this little section, it's the end of this particular chapter, she's talking about the many people that she shared the vignettes with, or of, how this impacted them moving forward, not just as an individual, but also in the relationship with whom they were brave enough to ask the curious questions. Not having an axe to grind, not having an agenda with the questions, but merely seeking clarification to help the conversation move along. So let's take a peek at that. First, one more nice deep breath. This part also helps clarify how we do tend to make assumptions. Doesn't matter who we are. We all tend to make assumptions about why someone else has said or done what they've said or done. So this is our opportunity to take stock of ourselves in terms of both if we're the one engaging in the behavior and having someone ask us the question, taking a look at, why did I do that? Or why did I say that? Where did that come from? And what do I want to do about it? And if we're the asker of the question, it can also illuminate some things that we have for prejudices, etc. So, taking quantum leaps. We have seen how people can make quantum leaps in personal growth when they ask non-defensive questions. The rest of this chapter will also discuss the types of changes that typically occur in the person answering the question. Yes, assume, you make an ass out of you and me. We believe, and I will tell you, marital couples are the worst at this, because if they've been married a long time, they assume they know what their partner's thinking and why they're saying what they're saying or doing what they're doing, and oftentimes they're wrong. Good morning, Janine. So we'll see what we end up with here. The person answering the questions. So we're going to look at the potential for personal growth in the person answering the questions. When we ask non-defensive questions, the person answering the question frequently takes quantum leaps in one of two ways. The first one is increased self-awareness. The person answering the question often voluntarily reveals the reason underlying the defensiveness, even if not asked. So remember the story of George, the mechanic who was selling her tires, and she had asked a question about them. Good morning, Nancy. Glad you're here. And he had said, basically, you don't need to know that. And she got angry, but checked herself, took the breath, and then asked him the question, do you believe that I don't need to know this information about my own tires? As matter of fact as she could. Good morning, Mel. Glad you're here. Welcome. So George, a stranger to me, immediately confided that the students at the community college never respected his knowledge. So he's coming from the perspective of my male students at the community college taking my mechanics class don't ask questions in ways that show they don't respect my wisdom and my good morning, Mactilde. Glad you are here. They don't respect my expertise in this area. So he assumed that she was also disrespecting his expertise, which was not the case. And she, on the other hand, had this whole agenda in her head about men don't respect women with regard to cars, and that wasn't where he was coming from either. So they were both into reactivity, neither one hitting the nail on the head. So there was the one about the little girl who wanted to wear dresses and her mom wanting her to wear pants to school. Mom's reasoning being, you can play more effectively in pants than you can in a dress. The little girl, Allison, even at the age of 4, could explain that she'd been upset because she thought her mom was rejecting her as a girl. So a dress being a talisman of femininity and her mom not letting her wear one. So did mom want a boy instead of a girl? Concrete thinking that little kids do, right? Rhonda expressed her fear of being unable to remember the material she was learning. So that story was in one of the classes that Sharon Ellison was teaching. There was a part she was trying to convey to the class, and one woman said, oh, something along the lines of, that's like the stuff we learn in charm school. And that phrase, charm school, rankled Sharon Ellison. Once she asked deeper questions, she figured out it wasn't that this woman was dissing her information as charm school. So again, asking the question, people who expose their reasons for defensiveness have the opportunity to increase their own self-awareness spontaneously. For example, George, the mechanic, may have often felt offended and reacted defensively when people asked him questions about the tires they were buying from him without consciously realizing why. When he answered my question, he brought the reasons for his defensiveness into his own consciousness. It was his reactivity to his students that was now leaking over onto his customers. And can you see how it ain't going to do his business much good if that continues to leak over? But now he has awareness. So there's that increased self-awareness. The second thing that the answerer of the question can gain is changes in attitude and behavior. We may change how we speak to others, our attitude, how much responsibility we take for our own behavior, or actually how we behave. So remember the Mina and Todd situation, we talked about that a little bit yesterday, where he basically blurted out that he had been ready to leave her and the kids. She didn't have a job outside the home, so she freaks out, like, oh my God, I'm going to be destitute. And they're into reactivity all over the place. But she asked the question. It was something along the lines of, what made you think that you wanted to leave me and the children? And so here we go. When Mina asked Todd why he wanted to leave her and their children, he suddenly became able to talk about everything he was feeling without letting Mina's fears inhibit him. So it wasn't about he no longer loved her, blah, blah, blah. It was the amount of pressure he was feeling, trying to keep all the plates spinning. Then there was Nancy and Frank. Frank was Nancy's boss. He was being inappropriate with comments, blah, blah. She used the process to call him out on it. Frank also took a major step when he promised to stop sexually harassing Nancy. And again, if he follows through on that promise, they can create a whole different kind of boss-employee relationship. If he doesn't follow through, then she's probably going to be more inclined to take a next step and have it addressed on a different level. But her asking the question opened up a whole new realm. And then going back to the tire guy, George. Not only did George's whole demeanor toward me change, but I suspect he changed his response to the tire customers who followed me. Yes, absolutely. She's laying the groundwork for, let's do something different here. After Rhonda clarified the relationship she saw between charm school and remembering how to communicate non-defensively, there was a noticeable difference in how quickly she assimilated the rest of the information, to the point that she inspired other group members. So when this blockade that she had in her own thought process, once she released that, believing she was capable of learning the material, all manner of doors opened up for her and for others witnessing her doors opening up. How cool is that? Changes with wide ramifications can take place. Changes that with continued effort can have lasting effects. Todd was able to shift toward making his work more meaningful because of his open conversation with Mina. Good morning, Beth. Glad you're here. He decided that he would go back to school and take classes to begin to prepare for a new career, excuse me, some of which his company paid for. So, I can think of a circumstance. I was having a conversation in the car yesterday, and the person I was talking with was irritated by a coworker who's constantly complaining about the mismanagement that happens at their employer. And working around to, how do I ask the question that puts this person in the position of no longer complaining, but maybe seeking, my guess is, she's not feeling confident enough to take the necessary steps to either move herself out of the department she's in or out of the company itself. And the person that I was talking to being in a position through whatever questions she chooses to ask to open doors for this other person and eliminate the issue, the complaining. Because who wants to listen to that, right? So there you go. Now, so those are the two for the person receiving the question and then answering it. Increased self-awareness and changes in attitude and behavior. Now, for the person asking the question. The person asking the question can also experience dramatic shifts in self-awareness, attitude, and behavior simply by gaining new information and by learning to understand false assumptions. Again, as I said yesterday, my sister and I run into this all the time. Well, you were thinking this, or you said that, and that meant this, and blah, blah, blah. And both of us having to back up and go, wait a minute. Let's see if we can be calm about this discussion and see where we go. And again, I will remind you, telling someone else to calm down is the best way to get them fired up. Just saying. So, for the person asking the questions, first we have to struggle with how are we going to put these words out there in a way that they can be received, right? So, increase self-awareness. The first one was Sally and Marcus. That was whenever she would ask him a question, he would draw into himself. Good morning, Cheryl. Welcome. He would get quiet. She would misinterpret that as he didn't want to have a conversation with her. So Sally learned that Marcus wasn't withdrawing just to torment her. He was feeling extreme conflict between wanting to talk and following his father's dictates against exposing any vulnerability. And how much do we have that in our, I'm not going to tell them because then they're going to use it against me. Sticks and stones may break my bones, blah, blah, blah. All the stuff. So we need to stop and take a look at, because Brene Brown repeatedly in her research has shown and says with quite regularity that willing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to be vulnerable is the single most important thing you can do to move things forward. and to get what you need, Our society is not set up that way. Being a patriarchal society, it is not set up that way. It's keep all that sensitive stuff to yourself, be a man, man up, blah, 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 all that crap. Okay. So when he was able to say that he was in conflict between wanting to tell her what was going on with him and his dad having said never show vulnerability, that revelation not only made sense to Sally, it reinforced her confidence in herself. She hadn't been wrong in believing that Marcus was a sensitive person. That's what had drawn her to him in the first place, but it kind of eroded over the course of their relationship. She had begun to think that in the beginning of their relationship, he had just duped her into thinking he had a tender spirit. Now, being aware that nope, he does have a tender spirit, and he's being pulled through different sets of learnings, she had far less desire to badger him and was increasingly able to let him be more accountable for whether he talked or not. Gradually, the cycle that had polarized them reversed itself. Notice it's gradually. These quantum leaps may not be, it might be over time, but every step, and that's one of the things that I like remembering. And I don't know if I first heard it through Abraham Hicks stuff or Tut or where, but the gist of what seems like an incremental small step on the third plane, 3D, is like moving heaven and earth in 5D. So what feels small progress to us is really literally huge progress. Good morning, Bobby. Glad you are here. Welcome, welcome. So gradually the cycle that had polarized them reversed itself. Happy great grandmahood. Yay! And thank you for sending the picture of that new baby. She looks so sweet. That's awesome. Yes. So we're all reveling in enjoying your new great grandmahood. Gradually, the cycle that had polarized them reversed itself, and they moved instead toward the spirit of companionship they had started out with, only with deeper understanding. So that's the increased self-awareness to the person who's asking the questions. Now, here are the changes in attitude and behavior in the people asking the questions. Okay, so Nancy and Frank again, the boss who was being sexually inappropriate with his employee. Nancy's confidence and trust in her ability to protect herself became much stronger because she had been able to ask Frank a straightforward question about his inappropriate sexual advances. And then there was Corey and Beth. Corey was the mom who was trying to guilt and shame and demand her daughter into helping with chores at home. Corey found that something shifted inside of her when she sincerely asked Beth about her attitudes towards housework. She felt more comfortable and secure about expecting Beth to contribute. Her need to defend her right to expect help dissipated. Again, how we approach things matters. How we approach things matters. Now we're back to Mina and Todd. Todd, who was going to leave Mina and the kids. Mina had also falsely assumed that Todd wanted to leave because he didn't love her anymore. How many women in particular take that stuff very personally? This must mean you don't love me anymore. Based on the information she received from him, she too made changes. She began to deal with her anxieties about financial security, took bookkeeping classes, and acquired her own clientele. Having her own career also eased Mina's fears, some of which had been based on being totally dependent on Todd's income. She no longer needed to worry so much. Now, Sharon Ellison is talking about how she grew having asked her question of George the mechanic. I also grew significantly in my interaction with George. I had automatically attributed the motivation for his behavior to a sexist attitude. Men have had dominion over tires. I was a woman. However, I now feel confident that my assumption was in error. He was interpreting my questions as similar to those of his students in mechanics who did not show respect for his expertise. Ironically, I think he was reacting to me just as much as he had his male students. I learned on a much deeper level how easily we reinforce and build on prejudice. When someone does something offensive, I think it is insidiously easy to pin the cause on the most obvious difference between us rather than take the time to find out if our assumptions are accurate. Do we not see this in spades in our current political environment? Everyone is blaming everyone else using the labels, the descriptive labels: Republican, Democrat, red, blue, conservative, liberal, whatever, and also the pejoratives, the libtards, all that stuff. So I'm going to read that sentence again because I think this is the nugget of gold. And Cindy, if you wouldn't mind putting this in the feed, that would be fabulous. When someone does something offensive, I think it is insidiously easy to pin the cause on the most obvious difference between us rather than take the time to find out if our assumptions are accurate. So if you want to capitalize the word difference, I think that would be fabulous. If you need me to repeat it, I think you have the book. So this is page 101, very bottom. When someone does something offensive, I think it's insidiously easy to pin the cause on the most obvious difference between us rather than take the time to find out if our assumptions are accurate. This increased understanding leads the way to another major shift. Both people can experience an instantaneous increase in rapport. And for those of you in the helping professions, social workers, psychologists, med tech, blah, 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 is not rapport, building rapport, one of the first things they teach all of us? You can be a crappy practitioner, but if you have good rapport with your people, they're likely to keep coming back. And you can be an excellent practitioner, and if you don't have bedside manners, social skills, etc., people are not going to come back. So, building rapport. In her case, asking George one question created a level of trust that went far deeper than simply dissipating her anger. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. That's your nugget right there. That's the one I want everybody to take away, all right? She says about her working relationship now with George, the mechanic. We developed a new relationship entirely different from the one we had had moments ago. I don't believe we have to know someone for a long time to care about them. If a person opens his or her heart and shows his or her vulnerability, I can feel love, even for someone I have only briefly encountered. I can still feel the connection George and I experienced as we stood together on that sidewalk. Curiosity really did win the Peace Prize. So, can you think of some circumstances where that's happened? You made an assumption about what someone else's reasoning was for saying whatever thing you took offense to, or doing whatever thing you took offense to. So I'm going to pick an example out of nowhere. If I hold the door for someone and they get huffy and go, I can hold the door myself. What's implied there? They're assuming that I'm thinking they're not capable of holding the door for themselves. When really, my motivation was, I see someone coming toward this door. I'm already going to be going through this door myself anyway. I might as well hold it for them. Nothing in there about they're incompetent, they're incapable, they can't hold their own door. So finding ways to bridge those gaps. So an observation I could make would be, sounds like you think I'm thinking you're not capable of holding the door. Is that accurate? Well, of course. Why are you holding it? No. And then I can state I just thought as I'm going through this door anyway and you were coming up behind me, I would hold the door for you as well. A gesture of kindness. Again, neutral as I can get it, because it is so easy to get irritated and fire back. And sometimes I'm going to suggest to you also, even after you've fired back, call yourself a timeout. Wait, hold it. Let me come up with a different response to that and take another whack at it. I think oftentimes we mistakenly believe that once we've said something shitty or done something shitty, there's no way to go back. And true, we can't undo what we've done, but we can offer apology, understanding why we snapped in the first place. We can put it in context so people get it. Well worth the time to do that. And I don't care how long down the road it is. If you haven't talked to Uncle Albert in 6 months because of something he said, and Thanksgiving's coming, call him. Hey, Thanksgiving's coming. I just wanted to correct something that I think I misinterpreted from what you said last Thanksgiving. Take a whack at it. What's the worst that can happen? He starts yelling and you decide you want to hang up, or he hangs up on you, or whatever. Doesn't matter. Some of these things, it's worth making yourself vulnerable. That's the vulnerability, being willing to reach out and say, hey, I think I made a mistake. Can we talk about this and correct this? One that happened recently in my family actually got corrected yesterday through some text messaging. There was a space of a week or two where those two individuals did not speak to each other, and finally one of them reached out. So, what will you do with this? What will you do with this? This idea that you can learn and grow and the other person can learn and grow when you're willing to ask the question neutrally, with curiosity, etc. What will you have for opportunities to practice? Put some in the feed. If you have questions about it, yeah, buts, what ifs, let's see what you got. But have an awesome Sunday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.